Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today's journey leads directly into the heart of 1967, an extraordinary year for the humble Lincoln 1-cent piece, a year marked by tension, experimentation, and an unusual mystery that still fascinates coin collectors. While millions of people handled these pennies without a second thought, very few understood the dramatic circumstances under which they were born. And fewer still realized that some of them would one day carry special financial value. In this video, we are going to walk deep into that story, why the 1967 Lincoln penny stands out, what makes it different, what collectors look for, and what exactly determines its worth in today's market. To understand just how unusual the pennies from 1967 are, we must rewind to the early and mid-1960s when the United States Mint found itself in the middle of what many historians call the Great Coin Shortage. Across the country, people were hoarding coins, especially silver ones, because of ongoing changes to coin compositions and rising metal prices. People feared that silver coinage would soon disappear from circulation, and panic-driven collecting caused an unintended domino effect. Coins of all denominations were vanishing from circulation faster than the mint could produce them. In response, the mint took drastic measures. Beginning in 1965 and continuing through 1967, mint marks were completely removed from all circulating coins. This was not because mint workers forgot them, nor because of some planned redesign, but because the mint wanted to discourage collectors from plucking new coins out of circulation. They believed that removing mint marks, which normally tell you whether a coin was made in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, would reduce collector interest and help stabilize the national coin supply. Whether that strategy worked is still debated, but the result was a peculiar chapter in U.S. coinage history. For those 3 years, 1965, 1966, and 1967, coins look strangely anonymous. You cannot tell where they were produced, and that simple difference sets them apart more than many people realize. The 1967 Lincoln penny, therefore, became part of an unusual and temporary tradition. Made of the classic bronze alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, it kept the familiar profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, but its missing mint mark instantly places it into the era of emergency measures. More than that, the year 1967 saw an enormous production run. Billions were struck, and most entered circulation quickly as the mint attempted to flood the system with coins to resolve the shortage. Naturally, this immense production volume means that the majority of 1967 pennies are common today. You can still find them in pocket change, tucked in coin jars, and sitting unnoticed in old drawers. But as with many things in numismatics, the story becomes far more interesting once you look beyond the surface. Even though the mint was churning out coins at remarkable speed, not all 1967 pennies were created equal. Some left the presses with extremely sharp details and beautifully preserved surfaces. Others suffered from striking inconsistencies, die cracks, alignment shifts, or unusual marks created during the minting process. And among those billions of circulating coins, a smaller fraction was struck with greater care for special collectors. These were known as special mint set coins, often abbreviated as SMS, and they occupy a fascinating middle ground between ordinary business strikes and the more familiar proof coins produced in earlier and later years. SMS coins were made with enhanced surfaces, sharper details, smoother fields, and a more refined appearance that catches the eye instantly when placed next to a typical circulation penny. Some exhibit remarkable satin-like textures, while others appear nearly proof-like, with deeper reflectivity and extraordinary contrast. Collectors prize these decades-old SMS coins because of their elegance, but rarity also helps fuel interest. The sets were not produced in massive numbers, and many were never preserved perfectly. As a result, high-grade SMS 1967 pennies can be far more valuable than regular circulating examples. But even among everyday pennies from the year, certain standout pieces, those with high mint state grades or unusual errors, can command small but meaningful premiums. Before exploring the highest values, let's take a closer look at the world of 1967 penny errors, because error coins are some of the most fun and intriguing discoveries in the hobby. A double die can transform a 1-cent piece into something dramatic and collectible. In such coins, the design elements, letters, numbers, or Lincoln's portrait, appear subtly or strongly doubled. Misaligned dies can create off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing, and while some show only slight shifts, others are wildly off-center, leaving blank crescents of untouched metal along the rim. Striking errors can also create brockages, die cracks, die breaks, and even clipped planchets, each a strange little fingerprint of the mechanical process that brought the coin to life. While error coins are not exclusive to 1967, coins from that year hold a special charm because of the context in which they were produced. Picture giant rooms full of coin presses running nearly non-stop, fed by the pressure of a growing national coin shortage. Under such stresses, imperfections and unusual outcomes became inevitable. That backdrop helps explain why some error coins from the year attract collector interest. Not only do they represent physical quirks, but they capture the anxious energy of the mint's frantic production efforts. Now, when evaluating the potential value of a 1967 penny, whether ordinary, SMS, or error, the most important factor remains condition. The grading scale used by collectors ranges from poor to mint state, and each step upward significantly influences price. Coins with rich luster, clean fields, strong definition, and minimal marks bring attention and higher bids. Meanwhile, those with heavy wear, scratches, discoloration, or damage often hold only face value. Since billions were made, only the most pristine and high-quality examples rise above the rest, but what fascinates collectors isn't only the physical condition or grade. It's also the story behind the penny, the sense that this ordinary-looking copper piece passed through an extraordinary moment in American minting history. When a collector holds a flawless or near-flawless 1967 penny, they aren't simply examining a coin, they're touching a piece of the unusual 3-year experiment that changed U.S. coinage forever. And that historical weight enhances desirability. Among the top-valued 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coins, attention usually focuses on the highest mint state grades and SMS examples certified by major grading companies. While most circulation strikes are worth only their face value or slightly more, exceptional pieces, those that have survived more than half a century without the slightest hint of wear, can reach impressively high valuations among collectors. The combination of rarity in condition, historical uniqueness, and collector demand provides a recipe for significantly increased worth. In today's collector market, the strongest prices usually come from coins that have been professionally graded, preserved immaculately, and recognized for exceptional surfaces and sharpness. A coin that leaves experts astonished by its clarity or brilliance can command a price that seems almost unbelievable for something originally worth just 1 cent. Of course, these prices apply to only a tiny fraction of surviving coins, but their presence continues to inspire people to check their change jars and coin albums, hoping to find that one special 1967 penny that somehow escaped the wear of decades. The story of the 1967 Lincoln penny is ultimately a story of contrasts. It is common and rare, ordinary and extraordinary, mundane and memorable. It carries a portrait of one of the most iconic figures in American history and the architectural symbol of his legacy. It embodies both the mint's struggle during a national coin shortage and the creativity of the special mint set program that briefly replaced proof sets. And, like so many treasures in the world of numismatics, it teaches a timeless lesson: even the smallest objects can carry stories worth uncovering, preserving, and sharing. We're stepping deep into the history, mystery, and money potential behind the United States 1972 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a coin millions of Americans passed through their hands without ever realizing the hidden value sealed within its copper surface. Picture the early 1970s, a decade buzzing with cultural waves, shifting politics, bold fashion, and groundbreaking music. In 1972, the United States Mint was operating full force, and the Denver Mint, marked by the iconic D, was responsible for producing an enormous number of pennies. Over 2.6 billion of these 1-cent coins rolled off Denver's presses that year. By sheer volume alone, these coins were never expected to be rare, special, or collectible. They were workhorses of commerce, meant for pockets, piggy banks, grocery store counters, and cash registers. Yet, as many collectors know, great stories often hide in plain sight. A close look at the 1972 D Lincoln cent. The 1972 D penny belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Series, minted from 1959 through 2008. These coins feature Abraham Lincoln's dignified side profile on the front and the iconic Lincoln Memorial on the back. What sets the 1972 D penny apart isn't a dramatic minting accident or a major design overhaul, it's the subtle nuances of quality, preservation, strike, luster, and rarity at the highest grading levels. A typical 1972 D penny is worth its face value. Even one in a decent circulated condition, shiny enough to catch attention yet clearly worn, usually trades for just a few cents. But coins, like people, are not judged only on where they've been but on what shape they've managed to stay in. The Denver Mint produced these coins in a hurry, and many suffered tiny imperfections, weak strikes, or bag marks. Collectors crave coins that survive untouched, unscathed, and beautifully preserved, and that is why certain examples of the 1972 D Lincoln 1-cent coin can command surprisingly strong value in today's collector market. Why condition matters so much. Imagine you find an old photograph. If it's torn, creased, and faded, it still carries sentimental value. But if it's perfectly crisp, sharp, and unblemished, as though it was frozen in time, suddenly it feels like a treasure. Coin collectors think the same way. For the 1972 D Lincoln penny, the highest value goes not to the average circulated coin but to those that professional graders declare flawless or nearly flawless. When a coin has extremely sharp details, full original mint luster, and surfaces free from nicks or scratches, grading agencies assign it a top-tier mint state grade. These high conditions are genuinely rare, considering billions of pennies were handled, dropped, bagged, stacked, and rubbed against countless other coins graded MS-66, MS-67, and especially any example creeping toward MS-68 become standout representatives of the year, and collectors love owning the finest examples available. The hidden challenge of copper coins. Copper is a beautiful metal, but it's also incredibly reactive. Even slight exposure to oils, humidity, or air can leave subtle tones, spots, and blemishes. Over decades, a penny might darken, lose its bright luster, or develop tiny imperfections that disqualify it from high-grade collecting tiers. That's why uncirculated 1972 D pennies that remain fully brilliant with strong red coloring, often labeled as RD, meaning red, tend to be far more desirable. It's this combination of huge mintage but scarce pristine survivors that gives the 1972 D penny its intriguing value curve. Diving deeper into minting and collectability, let's step back into the Denver Mint in 1972 for a moment. Machines roared, workers hurried along production lines, and blanks were transformed into billions of 1-cent coins. Each penny experienced thousands of pounds of striking pressure. Yet, even with industrial precision, not every coin came out perfectly. Some may show slightly weak details in Lincoln's beard or hair. Others may have tiny marks from clashing with neighboring coins during bagging and transport. These small issues may seem unimportant to the average spender, but to collectors, they dramatically affect a coin's grade and value, and this is where rarity reveals itself, not in how many were minted, but in how few remain pristine, where the real money potential appears. Most people who discover a 1972 D penny in a drawer or jar will find it worth only a cent or just slightly more. But the excitement begins when you locate one with brilliant red surfaces, sharp details, and minimal marks. Coins in high mint state grades have reached impressive price levels in auctions. These aren't ancient artifacts or scarce errors, they're everyday coins elevated by their exceptional condition. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln Memorial cents often pursue complete sets in the highest grades possible, and the 1972 D becomes a challenge piece when aiming for top-tier perfection. That demand creates the possibility for notable returns if you hold a sharply struck, well-preserved example. How to identify a potentially valuable example? If your coin looks ordinary, dark, worn, or scratched, it's likely worth face value. But if it looks surprisingly bright and untouched, it may be worth professional evaluation. Why this penny continues to capture collectors' attention? This coin represents a moment in American history when manufacturing was booming, inflation was rising, copper was still used in pennies, and the U.S. Mint was producing monumental numbers of coins. The 1970s Lincoln cents connect collectors emotionally to an era filled with dramatic change, cultural expression, and political tension. Coins serve as miniature time capsules, and the 1972 D penny is a perfect example of how everyday objects carry hidden stories. Despite its enormous original mintage, it still sparks excitement among collectors who hope to discover that elusive high-grade survivor tucked away in an old jar, estate box, or forgotten roll. A slow build toward the final reveal. As the script heads toward its closing, the camera returns to the single 1972 D coin resting under warm light. A gloved hand picks it up, turning it slowly between soft fingertips. The copper gleams. The details shine. And the narrative circles back to the ultimate question every viewer is waiting for. Long-form deep-dive video script explores exactly that. The 1977 United States Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, a penny that many people overlook but collectors approach with a quiet excitement. This little copper coin comes from an era when America was changing fast, when cultural tides were shifting, and even the nation's smallest currency was moving through a fascinating chapter of its own. Scene 2, stepping back into the world of 1977. Before diving into the details of this penny's value, we first step back in time. Picture America in 1977, new technologies weaving their way into homes, fashion echoing bold colors and freedom, and national spirit reshaping after a turbulent era. Cars were heavier, music lingered with soulful energy and rebellion, and the mint was putting out billions of Lincoln cents every year. Pennies were everywhere: pockets, jars, countertops, gas stations, school hallways, and they held the face of President Abraham Lincoln just as they still do today. But not all pennies are created equal, and not all pennies live the same fate. While billions move through circulation unnoticed, a small number survive in exceptional condition. Those are the coins that collectors keep their eyes on. And among the pennies of the 1970s, some stand out for their striking detail, their metallic shine, and their historical place in the fabric of American coinage. Scene 3, the legacy of the Lincoln cent. The Lincoln 1-cent coin began its journey in 1909, marking the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it replaced the Indian head cent and became the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1977, the penny had already been in circulation for almost 7 decades, its design familiar and iconic. On the obverse, Lincoln's thoughtful portrait gazes rightward. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands engraved with bold precision. Collectors appreciate the coins from the 1970s not because of rarity but because of quality. These were the final decades of the full copper cents, 95% copper, 5% zinc, before the transition to predominantly zinc coins in 1982. That alone adds a nostalgic weight to pennies from this era. They feel more solid, richer in color, and heavier in the hand. Scene 4, Mint marks and their meaning. The mint mark on a penny reveals where it was made. For 1977, there were 3 possibilities: no mint mark for Philadelphia, D for Denver, S for San Francisco. Specifically, proof coins. Each mint contributed to the total number of nearly 9 billion pennies struck that year. While output was massive, what gives the 1977 penny its potential worth is not the mint mark itself, but the condition in which it survives today. Most of these coins saw years of circulation, scraping against thousands of surfaces, picking up dents, scratches, and discoloration. But a handful were preserved, tucked away in rolls or collections, and these high-grade examples are the ones that command meaningful prices. Scene 5, The Collector's Eye. What makes a coin valuable in the world of numismatics? Value comes down to a blend of elements: rarity, condition, strike quality, demand, and historical interest. Rarity alone doesn't define a coin's worth. Condition often holds more weight. Even a common coin can be valuable if it is nearly flawless. That's where the 1977 mint mark Lincoln cent comes into play. Collectors search for coins with a sharp, crisp strike, brilliant luster without dulling, strong details on Lincoln's hair, beard, and coat. An especially clean Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, minimal contact mark, smooth, bright fields without haziness or spots. When a 1977 penny meets these conditions, especially when professionally graded by a reputable service, it can rise far above its simple face value. Scene 6, Why the 1977 penny still captivates collectors. You may wonder why a penny from a year with such huge production numbers attracts any attention at all. The answer lies in a combination of nostalgia, design, and the collector's chase for perfection. The 1970s Lincoln cents are considered part of the modern era, yet they still carry the charm of full copper composition. People who grew up during the 1970s often look back on these coins with familiarity, and collectors seeking complete Lincoln cent sets view high-grade examples as important pieces of their collections. Additionally, high-grade 1977 pennies aren't as easy to find as one might assume. Billions may have been minted, but most spent their lives circulating, wearing down year after year. Coins from circulation rarely, if ever, achieve the pristine status required to capture strong collector value. That's why the few that survive in exceptional condition stand out. They are survivors of their era. Scene 7, The Hunt for High-Grade Examples. Picture yourself sorting through an old box of coins, perhaps a jar passed down from a relative or discovered in a dusty attic corner. You pour the pennies into your hand, and among the dull browns and worn edges, one coin catches the light differently. The luster shines, the details pop, and the surfaces appear smooth and untouched. That small moment of excitement is part of why coin collecting remains such an enduring hobby. Finding a high-grade 1977 mint mark penny is not impossible, but it takes patience. Many collectors hunt through uncirculated rolls, mint sets, or even sealed proof sets for the San Francisco issues. Proof pennies, with their mirror-like fields and frosted details, have their own special charm. They reflect craftsmanship at a higher level, designed to be collected rather than spent. Scene 8, Understanding the role of grading services. Professional grading services play a major role in determining modern coin values. When a 1977 penny is submitted to a grading company, experts evaluate it under strict standards. Grades range from poor to mint state, with mint state, MS, coins being the most sought after when it comes to modern issues. For a 1977 penny, grades like MS 67 or MS 68 can make an enormous difference. These represent coins with only the tiniest imperfections, nearly perfect examples of their kind. The higher the grade, the more dramatic the value increase can be. Scene 9. Stories behind great finds. Collectors often share tales of coins discovered by accident, found in change at a gas station, inherited from a relative, or purchased in a miscellaneous roll from a flea market. Stories like these fuel the hopeful imagination. And while not every 1977 penny is destined to be a treasure, the possibility makes every search feel meaningful. Even if a collector finds nothing extraordinary, the joy of engaging with history through everyday objects is a reward in itself. But every once in a while, someone does uncover a gem, an uncirculated coin, untouched since the year it was minted, sitting quietly for decades. These discoveries can turn an ordinary afternoon into a memorable moment. Scene 10. How to handle and preserve valuable pennies. Once a collector finds a promising 1977 penny, preservation becomes crucial. Handling coins improperly, touching them with bare hands, cleaning them, or storing them in the wrong materials, can destroy value instantly. The proper way is, hold coins only by the edges. Use soft cotton gloves for safety. Store valuable coins in protective holders. Avoid cleaning coins at all costs. Keep them in cool, dry environments. Cleaning a coin might seem helpful, but to collectors, cleaning scars the surface and reduces authenticity. A coin should remain exactly as it is, with its natural tone and original luster. Scene 11. The 1977 penny. In the world of collectible finance, coins are more than historical objects. For many, they are investments. The steady interest in well-preserved Lincoln cents contributes to stable demand. Many collectors enjoy assembling complete series, and the 1977 penny occupies a neat position, common enough to be accessible, but special enough to shine in top grades. Because this coin belongs to the era of copper pennies, its composition adds to its appeal. Copper has long been a metal associated with value, warmth, and durability. A jar of older pennies even sounds different when shaken, a little heavier, a little richer. Scene 12. Building a narrative around a small coin. A penny might be small, but the story behind it stretches across decades. From the mint floor where planchets tumbled in rhythmic clatter, to presses stamping Lincoln's portrait with mechanical precision, to pockets, school desks, glove compartments, and beyond, every penny carries traces of countless moments in everyday life. Collectors are storytellers just as much as historians. When someone holds a high-grade 1977 penny today, they're not just looking at shiny copper, they're looking at a preserved snapshot of a particular year, a particular generation, and a particular chapter in America's living currency. Scene 13. What makes the 1977 penny worth more than face value? And finally, the question everyone wants to hear: what is this coin actually worth? Among the sea of circulated examples, only the finest, most pristine coins achieve premium value. High-grade versions certified by expert graders can reach a notable price, thanks to demand from collectors completing sets or chasing top pop registry coins. We step into that world of subtle mysteries, focusing our attention on a modest yet surprisingly fascinating piece of United States coinage, the 1980 Denver Mint Lincoln 1-cent coin. Though millions were created, a select few of these humble pennies have captured the curiosity of collectors, storytellers, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Imagine for a moment the late 1970s drifting into the dawn of a new decade. The United States stood at a pivotal moment, balancing between lingering economic strains and fresh waves of cultural change. The country had recently weathered inflation, energy crises, and shifts in global politics. Yet America was also surging toward modernization, technological growth, and an expanding interest in personal collectibles. It was a time of durable things, muscle cars still roaming the streets, analog televisions flickering in living rooms, typewriters clacking on office desks, and record players spinning songs that are today considered classics. Within that backdrop, the U.S. Mint prepared for another year of striking Lincoln cents, each carrying the familiar profile of the nation's 16th president. Abraham Lincoln's face had graced the penny for more than 7 decades by 1980, and though the portrait remained constant, the world around it was changing rapidly. Coins minted in Denver that year were struck with the D Mint mark, one of the most widely recognized symbols in American numismatics. Billions were produced, intended for vending machines, grocery transactions, parking meters, and childhood piggy banks. To most people, these coins were simply tools of commerce, small, simple, and rarely worthy of deeper inspection. But to enthusiasts with keen eyes and patient minds, some of these coins hold hidden details that transform them from ordinary currency into objects of genuine intrigue. Every coin tells a story, but not every story reveals itself easily. When collectors talk about the 1980 Denver Lincoln cent, the conversation often begins with the fundamentals: copper composition, sharpness of strike, the famous design by Victor David Brenner, and the condition of the coin as judged by careful graders. Yet the true excitement lies in the exceptions, the coins that bear tiny imperfections, the ones that slip through quality control with unique quirks, the pieces whose surfaces display traits unlike the rest of their massive population. As the presses pounded in Denver during 1980, producing penny after penny at extraordinary speed, occasional misalignments, slight die variations, subtle anomalies, and distinct wear patterns created a handful of standout coins. While these differences might seem insignificant to the untrained eye, they are precisely what elevates certain pieces to a category worth examining. Some collectors search for strong strikes without blemish, hoping to find a coin with gleaming fields and well-preserved details. Others hunt for unusual minting characteristics, varieties, or dramatic errors that can turn a seemingly mundane penny into a collectible treasure. Imagine running your thumb across the surface of a well-preserved Lincoln cent from that year. You might feel the crisp lines of Lincoln's coat, the graceful curve of the lettering, and the still sharp edges that have somehow resisted 4 decades of wear. Or perhaps you hold a coin whose features appear slightly different. Maybe the mint mark sits a hair off from where it normally belongs, or the lettering appears thicker, or the fields show evidence of a strike that set it apart from the rest. Observations like these can send a collector down a rabbit hole of discovery, prompting comparisons, magnified inspections, and long sessions flipping through reference books or online image archives. Across the country, coin enthusiasts continue to share stories of remarkable finds. A person sorting through an old jar in the attic might come across a penny that has been resting untouched since the early 1980s, shielded from decades of handling. Another might stumble upon one while sifting through pocket change at the dining room table. A collector at a coin show might spot an unusually lustrous 1980 D in a dealer's case, seemingly calling out from a lineup of other coins. A surprising number of notable coins have been uncovered in the most ordinary of places: coffee cans, dresser drawers, forgotten wallets, even old toolboxes gathering dust in garages. Part of the thrill of numismatics lies in the possibility that something extraordinary could be hiding in an everyday object. That sense of possibility is especially strong with coins like the 1980 D penny, which remain abundant enough to search yet scarce enough in exceptional grades to make the hunt rewarding. Some people sift through rolls obtained directly from banks, hoping to catch a rare survivor in higher mint state condition. Others focus their attention on identifying specific varieties. Over time, well-preserved examples have grown more appealing in the collecting world, not because the year is ancient or obscure, but because population reports show that truly pristine examples are harder to come by than many assume. The design itself adds to the charm. Lincoln's dignified portrait on the obverse carries a quiet sense of resolve, while the reverse, still featuring the image of the Lincoln Memorial in 1980, serves as an architectural tribute to the man's legacy. Coins from this era retain much of the rugged American character that long defined the cent: sturdy copper cores beneath a bright, recognizable exterior. For many, the nostalgia factor alone makes these coins special, recalling childhood memories of saving pennies in small paper rolls or exchanging handfuls of change for candy at the corner store. When discussing value, of course, collectors understand that not every 1980 D penny carries premium worth. The majority are common, circulated, and worn by years of use. But the heart of the topic lies not in the ordinary examples, it rests with the exceptional ones. Those few that avoided damage, scratches, and tarnish. Those few that boast surfaces so clean and luster so vibrant that grading professionals classify them at the upper end of the mint state scale. Those few that display characteristics not easily duplicated in the billions of others struck alongside them. Over time, these top-tier coins have gained attention for their desirability. Auctions have showcased unusually preserved specimens, attracting collectors who recognize the challenge of finding such pieces in the wild. Private dealers, online marketplaces, and coin conventions have reported increased interest in these standout cents, especially as more enthusiasts dive into the world of copper coins from the late 20th century. The number of people who specialize in Lincoln cents continues to grow, fueling demand for benchmark examples from any year. 1980 included. The Denver Mint's production that year might have been vast, but the survival rate of high-end pieces remains much smaller than the original numbers would imply. Mass circulation takes its toll quickly, especially with a coin that changes hands so frequently. That is why sharp details, untouched luster, and strong strikes command attention. For a modern-era penny, the value of a spectacular example lies in rarity of condition, not rarity of mintage. Collectors know this well, and their pursuit of the finest available pieces has elevated certain coins far above their face value. For anyone curious about the worth of a standout 1980 Denver Lincoln cent, it becomes important to balance expectation with understanding. Most coins remain common. But in the small circle of elite specimens, those lucky enough to have escaped wear and those possessing exceptional qualities, their appeal grows. Their significance rests not only in monetary value but in the narrative they carry, a moment in American history preserved in metal, a tiny artifact of everyday life transformed into something worthy of admiration. These coins offer us a reminder that history does not always arrive with grandeur or ceremony. Sometimes it arrives in simple objects, overlooked yet resilient, waiting for a patient eye to uncover its significance. The 1980 D. Lincoln penny is one such object, quiet, modest, and widespread, yet full of potential for discovery. Today, we're stepping deep into the world of United States 1-cent coins, but not just any pennies. We're talking about the 2013 Lincoln cents, a year that at first glance may seem ordinary, yet it holds surprises collectors are still uncovering more than a decade later. If you've ever glanced at a pocketful of change and wondered whether one of those coins might be worth more than face value, this is a journey you'll want to stay for. The 2013 pennies tell a larger story, of minting technology, unexpected die variations, subtle details that escape the untrained eye, and a collector market that continues to shift as more people discover small treasures hiding in plain sight. Let's begin where every coin story begins, with the United States Mint. In 2013, the Mint released billions, and yes, billions, of Lincoln cents from the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and each mint pumped them into circulation with remarkable precision and uniformity. At least, that's what the machines intended. But as every seasoned collector knows, the smallest deviation in the minting process can transform a mass-produced coin into something truly special. And 2013 produced several coins exactly like that, sparking interest from beginners, hobbyists, and longtime collectors alike. Hold a 2013 penny close and the first thing you'll notice is the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner and used continuously since 1909. Even though we've seen Lincoln's image millions of times, something about the sharpness of the 2013 design stands out: his cheekbone, the fold of his collar, even the subtle arch of his eyebrow. With modern minting technology, each curve and shadow is crisp and precise. And on the reverse, the Union Shield design reaches out with strong symbolism, 13 stripes representing the original colonies, bound together under one unified banner. There's a certain elegance to it, a reminder of continuity in a world that changes fast, but what really draws collectors to the 2013 pennies are the mint marks, the small letters that hold big meaning. A tiny D for Denver or an equally small, yet historic, S for San Francisco, signals more than just location. It tells you how the coin might have been handled, how rare it may be, and whether it ever touched the inside of a pocket, a register, or a collector's folder. The Philadelphia pennies lack a mint mark, but that absence itself is part of their identity. And yet, it's the coins from San Francisco that make collectors lean in just a bit closer, because unlike the Denver and Philadelphia coins produced for daily circulation, the San Francisco Mint in 2013 issued special proof pennies, coins struck with polished dies and handled with care to create a stunning mirror-like finish. These proof coins, tucked into sets purchased mainly by collectors, were never meant to clink in a change jar or slide across a gas station counter. Their shine is distinct, and their surfaces can reveal even the faintest flaw, making them fascinating subjects when grading and value estimation come into play. But even among the more common Philadelphia and Denver issues, certain variations have emerged over the years, small anomalies caused by die deterioration, minor doubling, and tiny misalignments only visible to those who take the time to examine the details. A little doubling on the lettering. A slightly tilted shield. A faint die crack stretching like a lightning bolt across the coin's polished surface. These imperfections may seem insignificant to someone casually glancing at a handful of change, but for collectors, they're whispers of the minting process, tiny events frozen in metal. As more people become interested in coin hunting, the value of such variations has taken on new energy. Videos, blogs, and collector forums have highlighted the 2013 Lincoln cents as a year worth revisiting, especially for those who enjoy the thrill of finding something unexpected. And it's not just seasoned experts doing the hunting. Young collectors, new hobbyists, and families searching through jars of old change have all contributed to a rising curiosity about coins from the 2010s, including this often overlooked year. And then there's the matter of condition. A 2013 penny that has survived more than a decade without the slightest scratch, ding, or fingerprint is a small miracle. When found in pristine condition, often in uncirculated rolls, forgotten drawers, or mint-sealed sets, it can draw more attention than its circulated counterparts. The art of grading coins, deciding whether a penny is merely good or truly mint state, can dramatically affect how much collectors are willing to pay. The gleam of a fresh strike, the sharp edges of lettering, and the untouched fields around Lincoln's portrait all contribute to a coin's desirability. Collectors often describe coins from the early 2010s as modern sleepers, coins that seem ordinary today but could become significant as more people look back and realize just how swiftly modern coinage evolves. Changes in metal composition, debates about discontinuing the 1-cent piece, and the growing use of digital currency add layers of intrigue to even the youngest coins in circulation. The 2013 pennies sit at the beginning of that cultural shift, still common, but increasingly appreciated for the tiny details that set them apart. Now imagine for a moment that you're preparing a new collection, one that highlights modern American history told through the coins of the last 20 years. You slide a 2013 Lincoln cent into its slot, maybe a pristine Denver example, maybe a mirror-like San Francisco proof, and suddenly it no longer feels like a simple penny. It becomes part of a timeline, part of a story that stretches from the past toward the unknown future of American coinage. New collectors are discovering this feeling every day, which is one of the reasons interest in even newer coins has surged. What makes the 2013 pennies particularly appealing is accessibility. You don't need to spend a fortune to begin searching. You don't need specialized equipment beyond a good magnifier and a bit of patience. You don't need a lifetime of experience. Every person who has ever received a penny in change has already had a chance to find one of these coins without even realizing it. The joy of discovery is open to everyone, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned collector working on completing a master set. And while many coins remain close to face value, certain versions, especially error coins, high-grade specimens, or proof examples, have drawn attention on the collector's market. These pieces, preserved in strong condition or struck with unusual characteristics, are the ones that stand out at auctions and in private sales. They remind us that even in a year of mass production, rarity can emerge from the smallest deviation, the tiniest flaw, or the most perfectly preserved surface. All of this brings us to the real wonder of coin collecting, the idea that ordinary objects, items passed from hand to hand, ignored in glove compartments, dropped between couch cushions, carry stories, history, and sometimes even unexpected value. A 2013 Lincoln penny may not seem remarkable at first glance, but when examined closely, it becomes a window into the mint's craftsmanship, America's economy, and the evolving art of coin production. So whether you're searching through your change, exploring coin rolls, or examining proof sets under bright light, the 2013 pennies deserve more than a passing glance. They offer a chance to learn, to discover, and to connect with a hobby that bridges generations. And who knows? The next coin you find may hold more significance than you ever imagined.